The whisper in the council. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with light and color. Tall crystal pillars reflected the glow of the twin suns outside, making the whole room shine like liquid gold. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in their floating seats, speaking in calm, measured tones. The air was normally full of polite greetings, quiet agreements, and endless speeches about peace. But today, the air felt heavy. Something unspoken moved through the chamber, like a cold wind before a storm. In the far corner, an old ambassador from the Karen race leaned close to his neighbor. His voice was low, but the words cut through the noise like a knife. "They say the humans have built dark matter warships," he whispered. The other delegate froze, his long blue fingers tightening on the edge of his seat. "That's impossible," he replied. "No one can control dark matter." "It's only theory." The old ambassador shook his head slowly. "It is no theory. They say one was seen near the Yaren border, moving without light, without sound." The word spread faster than any official announcement, from one seat to another, from one translator to the next. Dark matter, the most mysterious substance in the universe, unseen, untouchable, making up most of reality yet beyond the grasp of science. If the humans had found a way to build with it, to use it, then nothing in the galaxy could stop them. A representative from the Talari Republic stood, his voice sharp. "This is a dangerous rumor. We cannot allow panic," he said, but his eyes betrayed fear. He had seen humans before, had fought beside them in old border wars. They were clever, unpredictable, and far too quick to adapt. If they truly had ships made of something invisible, to all sensors, they could appear anywhere over any world without warning. The council speaker, a tall insectoid with shimmering wings, tapped the air for silence. "What proof do we have of this claim?" the speaker asked. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of the translation machines. The Karen ambassador spread his hands. A scout near human space reported a shadow that blocked the stars, but left no signature, no engine trail, no heat. And then it vanished. Another voice shouted from across the chamber. Perhaps it was a black hole. Laughter tried to rise, but it died quickly. No one was truly amused. A nervous delegate from the Ovric Empire spoke next. "My people trade near the human border," she said. "Our merchants say their sensors sometimes fail for no reason. Navigation systems drift off course, and strange gravity pulses are felt, like something massive is moving close, but can that be seen?" Murmurs filled the chamber again. The speaker called for order, but the unease had already taken root. The humans were a young species compared to most of the council worlds. Only a few centuries had passed since they first left their home system. Yet in that short time, they had survived wars, disasters, and even a near-extinction event on their homeworld. Every challenge seemed to make them stronger. Now the council wondered, had they taken a step too far ahead of the rest of the galaxy? One by one, the representatives began to speak. Some demanded an immediate investigation into human shipyards. Others wanted to send envoys to Earth to ask directly. A few, the most fearful, whispered of striking first before these dark matter ships could be mass-produced. The chamber became a storm of voices, each louder than the last. The speaker raised their wings high, sending out a sharp vibration that cut the noise. "We will form an inquiry," the speaker declared. "We will send observers to Earth, and we will find the truth." But even as the decision was made, no one could shake the image from their minds. A giant shadow swallowing the stars, unseen by any machine. If such a ship truly existed, then no fleet, no fortress, no planet would be safe. Far away beyond the council's reach, in the silent black between stars, something moved. It was vast, its shape hidden by the very fabric of space. Starlight bent and vanished around it. No engines roared, no signal leaked. Only the faintest ripple of gravity marked its passing. It glided like a predator in the deep ocean, patient and unseen. And deep inside its hidden hull, human eyes watched and listened. The whispers in the council had not gone unheard. The first sight, the edge of human space, was a lonely place. Stars here were faint and scattered, and the darkness felt deeper than anywhere else. Only patrol ships and brave traders came this far. It was in this silence that Captain Zorath of the Yaren Recon Fleet carried out his mission. He was here to watch, to listen, and to report. Nothing more, nothing less. For 3 days, his small scout vessel had drifted in stealth mode. Engines were cold, shields low, sensors stretched to maximum range. The humans had not detected him, or so he believed. He stared at the endless black, his eyes tired from scanning the same empty view again and again. Space was quiet, too quiet. No freighters, no patrols, not even the faint glow of mining outposts. "Captain, I have a reading," his sensor officer said suddenly. Zorath leaned forward. "Where?" The officer's claws tapped the console nervously. "It's strange." "Not on our primary sensors, only on gravimetric," Zorath frowned. "Explain." The officer hesitated. "There is a shadow, Captain. Something is bending gravity, but it has no mass on our charts." Zorath switched the main display to the gravity scan. At first he saw nothing, then slowly a patch of space seemed wrong. The stars behind it were dimmer, as if someone had spilled ink across the sky. "Is it a black hole?" Zorath asked, but his own voice carried doubt. "No, sir. A black hole would distort the light, stretch it, twist it." "This thing is eating the light entirely," the officer replied. Zorath felt a chill crawl up his neck. Ships were supposed to shine in space heat, energy, and light always betrayed them. But this shadow gave away nothing. Suddenly, the patch of darkness shifted. It moved with purpose, gliding across the starfield without any visible thrust. The ship or whatever it was turned. And for a moment, Zorath had the terrifying feeling it was looking directly at him. "Power down all systems," he ordered. The lights dimmed. The hum of the engines died completely. Only life support remained. The crew sat frozen, barely breathing. Then, without warning, the shadow vanished. Not cloaked, not hidden by a planet or asteroid. It simply wasn't there anymore. Zorath's heart pounded. What was that? One crew member whispered. No one answered for the rest of the night cycle. The crew stared at the void, but the darkness remained empty. When the shadow did not return, Zorath decided to send his report. His words were short but heavy. "Unidentified massive object detected. No energy, no signature. Defies known physics. Possibly human origin. Vanished without trace." He transmitted it through a secure burst channel. Some part of him hoped the council would ignore it, call it a malfunction, but deep inside, he knew what he had seen, and he knew it was built, not born, far from the Yaren border, deep in the safety of the Galactic Council's territory. The message was received. The intelligence officers read it twice. Then they forwarded it to the highest level, and within hours, the whispers about human dark matter ships grew louder. Now there was not just rumor, there was a witness, a professional. Captain who had seen the impossible with his own eyes. Back aboard the Yaren scout ship, Zorath tried to rest, but sleep would not come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that shadow swallowing the stars. He imagined it moving silently through the void, slipping past every sensor. He imagined it drifting over worlds, unseen, until it was too late. And worst of all, he imagined it multiplying, one shadow becoming a fleet, a swarm. If humans truly had such ships, they could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. It would not be war as the galaxy knew it. It would be hunting in the dark. Hours later, a faint ping echoed through the ship's comm system. Zorath checked the source. It was not from the Council, not from his own fleet. It was a single message on a private, untraceable channel. The words chilled him more than anything he had heard before. "You've seen enough, Captain. Go home." The crew swore they had shut down all channels. The encryption was supposed to be unbreakable, but the message had arrived anyway. Zorath didn't argue. He ordered the ship to turn around. heading away from human space as fast as their engines could take them. Behind them, the stars looked normal again. But Zorith no longer trusted the sky. He knew something could be out there, watching, moving without being seen. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, humanity's eyes were watching him leave. Humanity's silence. The Galactic Council wasted no time after receiving Captain Zorith's report. Within days, a delegation of high-ranking envoys was sent to Earth. Their mission was simple on paper: ask the humans about the dark matter warships, confirm the truth, and return. But in reality, every envoy knew this was more dangerous than it sounded. If the rumors were true, they would be walking into the home of a species that could strike without warning. The diplomatic ship entered Earth's orbit on a bright blue morning. From the viewport, the planet looked calm, full of green forests, deep oceans, and endless white clouds. It was hard to believe this beautiful world might be hiding something terrifying. The human welcoming party was already waiting at the landing site. Men and women in clean uniforms, smiling, their hands raised in greeting. Nothing about them looked threatening. "Welcome to Earth," said Admiral Collins, the human representative, his voice warm and friendly. The envoys bowed politely, masking their tension. They were offered tours of the cities, visits to shipyards, and even seats at a grand dinner. Everywhere they went, humans smiled and spoke openly about trade, culture, and peace. But not once did anyone mention dark matter. Not once did anyone slip and reveal anything about invisible warships. At the Sol shipyard, the envoy saw rows of cruisers, destroyers, and carriers under construction. They were large, powerful vessels, but nothing the Council hadn't seen before. No invisible giants, no ships that could bend light and gravity. It was all ordinary. Too ordinary. The envoys exchanged uneasy glances. Was this the truth, or just a stage prepared for their eyes? That night, the delegation stayed in a guest complex near the ocean. The rooms were comfortable, the air smelled of salt and flowers, but the Ovik envoy, a tall alien with silver scales, could not sleep. She stood at the window, staring at the dark horizon. Somewhere out there was the vast unknown. Her thoughts were interrupted when the lights in her room flickered for just a second. A brief hum ran through the walls, like a low growl beneath the floor. Then everything went quiet again. In the morning, the envoys boarded their ship to leave. As they passed the orbit of the moon, strange readings began to appear on their navigation systems. Gravitational fluctuations, tiny shifts in their course that made no sense. The engineers tried to correct them, but the disturbances kept moving like something was brushing against the ship's path. They scanned, but found nothing. No heat signatures, no radio waves, no visual confirmation. It was as if the emptiness itself was alive. One of the envoys muttered, "We are being watched." The others said nothing. Everyone could feel it. The same silent pressure in the air. They were not alone out here. Whatever it was close, impossibly close. When they finally crossed back into neutral space, the strange disturbances vanished instantly. The navigation systems returned to normal, and the stars shone clear again. Only then did anyone dare to speak openly. "They let us see nothing," the Talari envoy said bitterly. "Or maybe." The Ovrik envoy replied slowly, "We saw exactly what they wanted us to see." The report they sent back to the Council was careful. It stated that no proof of dark matter ships had been found, but it also warned that human space had strange, unexplained gravitational patterns and possible stealth activity. It was not enough to accuse, but more than enough to worry. Back on Earth, Admiral Collins received a secure message from Deep Space Command. The envoys had left without discovering the truth. In the shadows of the command room, holographic displays lit up, showing faint outlines of massive ships drifting unseen just outside the moon's orbit. They had been there the entire time, watching every move the envoys made. Collins allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The humans didn't need to prove anything to the Council. Let them wonder, let them fear. and so humanity's silence became its greatest weapon. The more they refused to answer, the more the galaxy imagined the worst, and in a way, the imagined threat was even more powerful than the real one, because the Council now had to ask itself a dangerous question. If the humans could hide such power from them, what else could they be hiding? Far beyond the Council's reach, one of the dark matter warships moved silently through space. It had no lights, no heat, no sound. It was a ghost in the void, unseen by any sensor, and somewhere in its hidden corridors, a human commander spoke. Softly into the comms, "They are starting to believe, Admiral." Just as planned, the mistake the Galactic Council had grown tired of waiting. For weeks, they had debated, argued, and whispered about humanity's possible dark matter fleet. Some believed the humans were bluffing, using fear as a shield. Others insisted that no one should have such power. And the galaxy needed answers now. In the end, they made the worst choice they could. They decided to send a show of force. A massive fleet was assembled at the border of human space. Over 200 warships, each armed with the most advanced weapons the Council species could offer. They were painted with the colors of peace, but their guns told a different story. Officially, they called it a joint training exercise. Unofficially, it was a warning. "Come clean, or we will be ready." Admiral Seraph of the Tulari Republic stood on the bridge of the flagship. He was confident, perhaps too confident. No human fleet could stand against the combined power of so many Council ships. In his mind, the dark matter warships were just a rumor until proven otherwise. And if the humans really did have such ships, Seraph intended to force them out of hiding for 2 days. The fleet sat just outside the formal human border. They sent polite messages, invitations for dialogue, and requests for military transparency. The humans answered every message with the same calm reply. "We have nothing to hide," but they never sent ships to meet the fleet. No patrols, no fighters, not even a single probe on the 3rd day. Strange things began to happen. It started small communications lagged by several seconds. Then shields began to flicker without cause. Navigation systems reported slight course changes even though no one had moved. Engineers across the fleet scrambled to diagnose the problems, but they found nothing. No enemy ships, no environmental hazards, no solar interference. It was as if space itself had turned against them. Then, the stars began to vanish, one by one. Patches of the sky went black. At first, the crews thought it was sensor failure. But when they switched to visual observation, the darkness remained. The black shapes grew larger, blotting out entire constellations. A whisper of fear ran through every ship. Something was moving, and it was moving all around them. Contact, multiple signatures. A voice shouted on the flagship's bridge. Admiral Seraph turned toward the tactical screen. There were no heat readings, no warp trails, no standard target locks. Only gravity shadows, massive, dense, and closing in from every direction. He realized too late what was happening. The humans weren't sending a fleet to meet them. The fleet had already been here, watching them the entire time. A deep voice came through every comm system at once. It was calm, steady, and impossible to trace. "You are already inside our gun's reach," the human voice said. "This is your only warning. Leave." The message cut off instantly, leaving only silence. On some ships, crew members swore they heard it directly in their heads. Bypassing all electronics, no one knew how the humans had done it. Panic began to spread. Captains barked orders to retreat. Others shouted to hold formation, but the dark shapes kept moving closer. No one fired a shot. No one dared. If the humans could get this close without being seen, there was no telling what their weapons could do. Then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the black shapes began to pull back. The stars returned. The system stabilized. It was as if nothing had happened at all, but everyone knew better. The humans had made their point without firing a single weapon. The message was clear. If the Council wanted a war, humanity could end it before it even began. The fleet limped back toward neutral space in silence. No victory speeches, no triumphant broadcasts, only quiet, uneasy thoughts. Some officers refused to speak for days. Others resigned their commissions. They had looked into the dark and seen something they could not explain. And they knew the galaxy would never be the same back. On Earth, deep within a command center hidden beneath the oceans, a human admiral watched the retreat on a holographic display. "Stand down," he told his fleet commanders. The dark matter warships drifted back into the void, their presence once again erased from the universe. The admiral allowed himself a small smile. The council had made their mistake, and now they would never forget the lesson. The warning the Galactic Council fleet returned home in silence. No parades, no celebrations, only the cold knowledge that they had stood face to face with something they could not understand. Rumors spread quickly among the crew's whispers of giant shadows in space, invisible weapons, and voices that spoke directly into the mind. But when the official report was written, the truth was buried under vague words like unidentified anomalies and technical disruptions. The Council did not want their people to know they had been completely at the mercy of the humans. Still, in the heart of human space, the lesson had not ended. Deep beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, in a hidden command center, Admiral Collins studied a live feed from the fleet's retreat. The dark matter ships floated unseen in the void. Watching the Council's vessels crawl away, their mission was complete. But there was one more thing to do: deliver the message. Not a threat, not an insult, but something far more dangerous. A warning. The human fleet's commander, Captain Reyes, stood beside the admiral. He was young for his rank, but calm and sharp-eyed. "They came to test us," he said quietly. "We showed them enough to make them think twice." Admiral Collins nodded. "Now, we make sure they never think about coming back." The order went out through silent, encrypted channels. Every dark matter warship positioned itself at precise points around the Council fleet's line of retreat. The humans had calculated their movement perfectly. No matter where the alien ships went, they would pass within range of the hidden giants. No weapons needed to fire. No ships needed to reveal themselves. Only a single message would be sent when the Council fleet entered. The narrow pass between two star systems, the space around them seemed to... It wasn't sound, but a deep vibration that the crews could feel in their bones. Then, without warning, every ship's communication screen lit up. The same human voice spoke to them all at once. Clear and steady. "You are already inside. Our guns reach," it said. "This is your last step forward. Turn back, or you will not have the chance to turn again." The message lasted only 7 seconds. No one could trace the source. On some ships, the voice seemed to bypass the equipment entirely, echoing directly inside the minds of the crew. For a long moment, the Council's vast fleet drifted in silence. Even the most aggressive captains felt the weight of that warning. They had the numbers, but numbers meant nothing against an enemy. They couldn't see or touch Admiral Sereth. The same man who had been so confident before now stood frozen on his bridge. He replayed the message over and over in his head. It wasn't just the words, it was the certainty in the voice. Whoever spoke knew they could destroy the entire fleet in seconds, and they wouldn't hesitate. If provoked one by one, the Council ships turned away. No one argued, no one asked for permission. They retreated without firing a single shot. It was the most humiliating withdrawal in the Council's long history. But it was better than the alternative. No one wanted to be the first to find out what a dark matter weapon could really do. Back in the Council chamber, the debate was bitter and divided. Some argued that the humans had committed an act of aggression. Others said they had merely defended their territory. But all agreed on one thing: humanity's warning had been delivered with terrifying clarity. If the galaxy pushed them, they would push back harder than anyone could survive on Earth. The human admirals reviewed the mission reports. The dark matter fleet had moved perfectly, without a single detection, even within visual range. The alien crews had seen nothing but empty space. The humans had proven their greatest strength wasn't just their technology, it was their ability To make an enemy believe that fighting them was not just unwise, it was impossible. Captain Riaz asked a question as they dismissed the briefing. "Do you think they'll come back?" Admiral Collins gave a small smile. "Not for a long time. And if they do, they'll remember the warning." Far out in the black, beyond the edge of human space, one dark matter ship lingered alone. It had been ordered to follow the retreating Council fleet from a distance, no closer than a shadow, no further than a breath. Its commander watched the alien ships scatter to their home territories, and in the quiet of his sealed bridge, he whispered to himself, "They're afraid now." And fear lasts longer than any war. The secret revealed in the deepest levels of the Pacific Command Facility. Behind blast doors and biometric locks, only a small circle of humans knew the truth. The dark matter warships were not just advanced designs or clever engineering. They were an accident, a dangerous, unpredictable accident. It had started 20 years earlier with Project Horizon. The goal was to create a new type of propulsion using controlled singularities. Scientists believed they could bend space by manipulating dark matter fields. The early tests failed, sometimes violently. One experiment destabilized so badly that an entire asteroid was swallowed into nothing. Most nations abandoned the idea, saying it was too risky. But humanity had always been stubborn when chasing the impossible. In a sealed lab on Luna, a group of physicists and engineers kept working in secret. They discovered that when dark matter fields collapsed in a controlled pattern, they didn't just bend space, they erased their presence from the visible spectrum entirely. No light reflected, no heat escaped, no signal could be traced. Anything inside the field became invisible to the universe. At first, the scientists thought it was useless for practical purposes. Then the military arrived. A classified team was formed. They built the first experimental hull around a stable dark matter core. The ship was nicknamed Shade 1 during its first test. It drifted past a Terran Navy destroyer at less than 2 kilometers without being detected. The destroyer's crew never even knew it was there. The potential was terrifying and irresistible. But there was a problem. The dark matter cores were unstable. If pushed too far, they could collapse into micro black holes. Such an event would destroy the ship instantly and possibly consume anything nearby. For this reason, the fleet could never be too large or used recklessly. Only a handful of trusted commanders were allowed to operate them. And even they understood the danger. Admiral Collins, one of the few who knew every detail, stood in the operations chamber, staring at a holographic projection of the fleet. Rows of invisible giants floated silently beyond the moon's orbit, waiting for orders. Beside him, Dr. Evelyn Ward, the lead scientist of Project Horizon, adjusted her glasses and frowned. "They still think we have hundreds of these," she said. Collins nodded. "They don't need to know there are only 12. The secret was as much psychological as it was technological. By letting the galaxy believe the humans had an endless fleet of these warships, fear did most of the work, and fear cost nothing." Still, Collins knew that, if even one ship was destroyed, the illusion might crack. The balance between secrecy and deterrence was delicate. Dr. Ward tapped a control panel, showing live feeds from several ships. Each displayed a strange, shifting distortion instead of a hull. "The cores are holding stable for now," she said. "But the stress readings are higher than we expected after the last maneuver." Collins didn't like the sound of that. "We need them operational as long as possible." "The Council isn't done testing us," he replied. Meanwhile, far from Earth, whispers about the ships continued to spread among the alien worlds. Some said the humans had stolen the technology from an ancient precursor race. Others claimed the ships weren't made by humans at all, but were living entities bound to serve them. No one outside Earth knew the truth, and that was exactly how Collins intended to keep it. Later that night, Collins stood on the balcony of the command center, watching the Pacific waves crash against the reinforced shoreline. He thought about the sacrifices made to create the fleet. Test pilots lost during early experiments, engineers killed in accidents, and scientists who vanished into classified black rooms and never returned. Every shadow ship was built on a foundation of risk and loss, but the alternative, a galaxy where humanity was vulnerable, was worse. In a quiet voice, Dr. Ward joined him. "You know, these ships could fail at any moment," she reminded him. Collins gave a tired smile. "Yes. But until then, they're the most powerful bluff in the history of the galaxy." They both stood in silence for a moment, listening to the ocean, out there, beyond the stars. The Council feared the humans more than any other power, and fear, Collins thought, was the most valuable weapon of all. Above them, in the cold darkness of space, Shade 1 drifted like a shadow on water. Its commander, Captain Reyes, received a secure message from Earth: hold position, maintain invisibility, and observe. Reyes understood the unspoken order. They weren't just guarding the borders, they were guarding the secret. The last meeting, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, was silent when the session began. No colorful greetings, no long introductions, only the heavy tension of unspoken fear. Representatives from every major world sat in their places, avoiding each other's eyes. The topic had been carefully worded on the agenda: strategic discussion regarding human military capabilities, but everyone knew what it really meant. They were here to decide humanity's fate. The speaker, a tall insectoid with iridescent wings, rose slowly. "We have all heard the reports." The speaker began, their voice carrying across the vast chamber. "Shadows in space, undetectable vessels, weapons beyond our understanding." The words echoed like stones dropped into still water. Some representatives shifted nervously. Others sat frozen. From the floor, Admiral Seraph of the Tolari Republic spoke first. He had been the one to lead the fleet that confronted the humans. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a weight he could not hide. "I tell you now, they could have destroyed us without warning," he said. "They didn't fire because they didn't need to. We were already defeated." A murmur spread through the chamber. One delegate from the Ovric Empire slammed her clawed hand on the table. "Then we must act before it's too late," she snapped. "If we allow them to grow stronger, there will be no stopping them." But across from her, the ambassador of the Karen race shook his head. "You would start a war against an enemy you cannot even find?" he asked. "That is not strategy, that is suicide." For hours the council argued. Some pushed for an immediate alliance with the humans. Others demanded sanctions, blockades, or even a preemptive strike. But every plan came back to the same problem: no one knew how many ships the humans truly had, or where they were. The uncertainty was worse than any confirmed number. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Admiral Collins received a discreet transmission from a deep space relay. The message contained fragments of the Council's private discussions. They had been intercepted by the same shadow ships now orbiting quietly near the Council's borders. Collins read the transcript and smiled faintly. "They're tearing themselves apart with fear," he said to Captain Reyes, who stood beside him. "That fear will keep them from uniting against us." Back in the chamber, the debate reached its breaking point. The speaker finally struck the ceremonial staff against the floor. "Enough," they said sharply. "The Council will not vote on war today. Nor will we vote on sanctions." Instead, a new resolution was passed. An official mission of peace would be sent to Earth to offer trade and cultural exchange. It was a face-saving gesture, but everyone knew the truth. It was an attempt to get closer to the humans and perhaps learn their secrets. When the decision was announced, the Ovric delegate muttered bitterly, "We are not making peace. We are buying time." But the Karen ambassador replied softly, "Time is better than extinction." A week later, the Council's delegation departed for Earth. Their ships traveled through the emptiness between stars. Scanning constantly for signs of the dark matter fleet, they found nothing. But every crew member felt the same uneasy sensation, that they were being followed. Every shadow in the starfield seemed to move just a little too deliberately. When the delegation arrived, they were greeted warmly. Admiral Collins himself welcomed them at the orbital station. his handshake firm and his eyes calm. "We're glad to see the Council seeking understanding," he said. The delegates smiled in return, but each of them felt a quiet chill. Somewhere beyond the viewports, invisible giants drifted. They would never be seen, but their presence was felt like a phantom weight in the air. The meetings lasted for days, full of polite words and careful promises. The humans offered trade routes, cultural programs, and joint exploration missions. The Council accepted everything, but in the shadows of their minds, suspicion remained. They would return home with new agreements. But no answers. On the final night before the delegation left, Admiral Collins stood alone in the station's observation deck. The stars glittered against the endless black, one by one. Certain stars winked out, not because they were gone, but because something vast had moved in front of them. Collins watched the faint distortions of the Shadow Fleet repositioning. They were the silent guardians of Earth, unseen and unstoppable. The delegation never saw them, but as their ships departed, each envoy felt the same thought pressing in their mind. The humans had let them leave, and the only reason they were still alive was because humanity had decided so. Back in the Grand Chamber weeks later, the speaker gave the official summary. "Peace talks with humanity are ongoing," they announced. No mention was made of the sleepless nights, the whispered fears, or the way every council member avoided voting on anything that might provoke Earth. The galaxy had learned a final, unshakable truth. You do not have to fire a single shot to win a war, not if your enemy is too afraid to fight. And far from the Council's reach, deep in the darkness, the Shadow Fleet waited, watching, listening, ready, because in the cold math of survival, fear was the sharpest blade humanity had ever forged.